This is a 2009 Yamaha R1, the first year of that glorious cross-plane engine. And this is a 98 R1, the very first year of the R1 ever. How far did the R1 come in 10 years? Are they similar? Can you tell that they're relatives? Let's start off with some basics. Blue. These are both Yamaha blue. And strangely enough, in the course of 10 years, it hasn't changed that much. A lot of other things have changed throughout the course of time. However, neither of these bikes have ABS nor traction control, and they were top-of-the-line motorcycles of their time. They both had top-of-the-line brakes for their time too, along with upside-down forks, inline-4 engines, and 6-speed transmissions. They were definitely industry leaders at their time, and some would say the R1 is the best of the big four. This bike basically paved the way for the modern 1000cc motorcycle, and this one essentially reinvented it with the cross-plane engine, which was vastly different than the road set before us by literally this machine right here. When you get on this first gen R1, you can definitely tell it's older. The suspension is a little bit softer, it handles a little bit slower back and forth. The seat and the gas tank, they're a little bit wider between the legs, but the seat's also more cushy too. It's still a sporty ride, it's still leaned over, it still demands respect. It's still a sport bike. I've talked about this before. This bike does have good mid-range power with no rider aids. It doesn't even have a steering damper. It is still a wild ride. But we're gonna talk about power and power delivery a little bit later on in the video because this crossplane is insane. This 09 R1 has a lot of character. It really does. I would say it trades the plush comfort of the older bike for a more aggressive, track-focused approach. Everything on this just seems to be turned up a notch. For example, this R1 has 41mm front forks, whereas this R1 has 43mm front forks and pretty much every single motorcycle after it.
That gives this bike a clear advantage as far as suspension feel. Each click on the suspension adjustment seems to make a more noticeable difference, and it seems to have a little bit longer suspension that's more capable of handling back-to-back bumps.
The older R1 has 298mm front rotors, whereas the newer R1 has a 310mm front rotor. And they got even bigger on the newer stuff.
And this bike just does have a better brake feel. The lever is a little bit easier to pull, it's more direct, it's easier to modulate. The lever literally just does more with less.
This R1 has a more traditional inline-4 with a more peaky power band, carbs, and only 150 horsepower.
And that's not a negative. The carbs on this bike make the throttle response instant with some good weight to them, so you can tell exactly what you're doing with your throttle hand. And if I'm being honest, right here in the middle, this thing rips.
Oh yeah, listen to it. Come on, come on. This R1 has 182 horsepower, 86 foot-pounds of torque, but it still retains a cable throttle. And
the mid-range on this bike is literally staggering. It has a more aggressive grunt at the low end, and it carries way more at the top. This bike just flat out has more power, more torque, therefore it demands more respect. And it's more fun.
The sound of this bike is basically the heavens calling. Listen to it. This older R1 weighs 423 pounds, whereas the newer one is a little bit more beefy at 450.
Do you feel that 30-pound difference when riding the bike or moving it around? Well, no, not really. Right here on the side of the tire, they both feel equally as planted, equally as stable. They both feel equally as light. And when you're moving them around off the bike, I can say they feel pretty similar too.
So the Yamaha R1 has come a long way, and I would be lying to you if I told you that you couldn't feel the difference because things have changed. But I can say this, both of these motorcycles are very strong and they bear a family resemblance. That's easy to tell when you ride them back to back. If I could only pick one, I would definitely pick the old one because my heart's set on it. Hence the name of the channel. But this crossplane sounds good, delivers great power, and it is a beast of a machine. I honestly wish I could have them both. If you like this video and you want to see a full-on review of this 09 R1, check out this video right here. And if you're curious to see how big of a difference the speed differential is between this 98 R1 and this 09 R1, check out this video right here. Heads up, that was like a year ago, and my video creation is hopefully a lot better now. Peace, guys.